Good morning. I'm Councillor Annie Morrell, Chair of the North East Crematorium Board. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the committee on Tuesday the 9th of March 2021 at 10 a.m. The Vice Chair of this committee is Councillor Rosemary Birchall, who will take over the chairing of this meeting should I lose connection at any point. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's website and will be available following the meeting. I would like to welcome those members of the public watching the live stream. I think members and officers know the general etiquette for virtual meetings, but I would just like to remind everybody, please keep your microphones switched off when you are not speaking so the live stream doesn't cut between people. And please use the chat box when you wish to speak rather than speaking across one another. Before we come to item 2 on the agenda, would members who wish to declare an interest please comment in the chat box? Thank you, members. I shall now ask the clerk to confirm which members are present and, where necessary, invite members to declare any interests. Cathy, would you please confirm attendance?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Mike Ryder from the London Borough of Wandsworth, and I can see the following members are present: Councillor Nick Draper, Councillor Stephen Alambratis, Councillor Vincent Gallagher, Councillor Terry Walsh, Councillor Graham Henderson, Councillor Paula Walker, Councillor Jean Crosby, Councillor Rosemary Birchall, and yourself, Councillor Annie Morrell. And we haven't got Councillor Nigel Bembo.
Okay then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. I will move on to item 3, which is the minutes.
Chair.
Sorry, Graham.
Councillor Graham Henderson, can I just say that I may have to leave early to attend a constituent's funeral. Depends on how long the meeting lasts. So I'd like to give my apologies in advance, just in case I do need to leave early. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you for informing me. I'd like to move on to item 3, the minutes of the meeting. Members, can we approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 8th of December 2020? I'll allow time for members to speak if they wish to express dissent on the minutes. Members, if you are happy to accept these minutes, please comment in the chat box as I am looking for general assent. Thank you. I think the minutes are agreed. Thank you. I'd now move on to item 4, and that's the appointment of the new clerk to the board. And I'd like to welcome Cathy Hayward, who's been appointed as a new clerk to the board. Welcome, Cathy, and I think all the members here are saying welcome. Welcome, Cathy.
Thank you.
Item 5, report of the Surveyor. I would like to hand now to Clive Andrews, Surveyor to the board. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, councillors. This is my report for the previous 3 months up to March 2021. If I could take you to my report, which is page 7 of your agenda pack, and I will take you to business level activity 3.2 and refer you to Appendix A, which is page 13 of the pack. You'll see that we've had a huge increase in cremation numbers in the past year. And just to put this into context, our original figure of 1,950 cremations was surpassed at the last meeting and was revised to 2,300. Since that time, that figure now is at 2,610. Because I've been advised this morning that we are carrying out 238 cremations for the month of March. So just to put that into context, that's nearly 700 additional cremations that have taken place this financial year, which is absolutely astounding and very sadly, it's a consequence of, unfortunately, the inevitable COVID. So I've needed to report this to you, but it's a sorry tale, I have to say. If there are any questions on that, otherwise I'll move on.
I totally agree, Clive. It is a sorry tale, and I think everybody here is very aware of the amount of deaths that this pandemic has caused. And thank you for the information, Clive.
Thank you. Item 3.4, this is performance monitoring. What I'll do is just give you a brief overview of some of the more pertinent points that I've seen in the past quarter. The inspection of the crematorium was actually carried out on the 17th of February. As you know, a temporary shift pattern remains in place with additional staff employed to assist the regular staff. And these arrangements seem to be working well, as you can imagine, very demanding circumstances. You'll also know that I've kept members updated with various emails during that time, just to keep you, informed of what's going on at the crematorium. Item 3.7, carried out an inspection of the Gardens of Remembrance. They were in a good horticultural standard. However, because we've had prolonged wet weather, there was quite a lot of pooling around certain parts of the gardens, and of course that can be distressing for visitors at this time of year. Now, I may have commented on this before, so apologies to members that have been on the board for some time, but there are ground characteristics to the cemetery itself, and indeed the Gardens of Remembrance, and that is that the cemetery is on a very high water table. The ground is traditionally London clay, which tends to retain water. And the actual cemetery was built on old marshland. So if you get the three together, it's very, very difficult to deal with surface water. That said, we are going to try and relieve that, because, as you know, in the capital programme, there are planned repairs to look at our underground drainage system, which unfortunately is in quite a poor state of repair. Over the years, the tree roots have broken through the old clay pipes, and they've broken through, and it's just a mass of tree roots under there. So there's extensive underground drainage works being carried out this year. And also, as part of the new ashes lawn, we've got a French drain that's being put around the perimeter. And again, that should help with the groundwater problems that we currently have. Moving on to point 3.11, I looked at the data that's being produced from the cremators, and I found that we are getting exceedances of emissions levels. Now, there are characteristics to the fact that the cremators are being heavily used at the moment, and we've been in regular dialogue with Merton's EHO, and he hasn't got any cause for concern over this. This is just a natural characteristic of the way in which the cremators are being used at the moment. So there is no cause for concern. There is no risk to our permit that we have in place. So just to assure board members that we are monitoring this on a regular basis. Are there any? I wasn't going to comment any more on the operational points, but I'm happy to take any questions at this stage from members. Thank you. Can I move on to page 9? I'd like to bring to the board's attention 3.19. We've had no complaints received in the last 3 months, and that's quite incredible when you think of what's happening at the crematorium at the moment. And I think that's really testament to Barbara and her staff there, to be able to keep things running at such a trying time. So well done to all of the staff. Point 3.1 under employee matters, sorry, 3.21 under employee matters. The crematorium manager retired in January, and there was an initial recruitment process for his replacement. Unfortunately, we didn't get a suitable candidate. However, Enable have carried out a second recruitment campaign, and a potential candidate has been identified. And I wondered if Barbara could perhaps give us an update on that recruitment process, please.
Yes, we've been successful in the second round. We've interviewed the gentleman twice now, and taken him up and shown him around the crematorium just to familiarise him. He's not from the industry, but he does have a strong management background, and he starts on the 12th of April. His name is James Long.
Thanks, Barbara.
Graham, would you like to?
Thank you. Yes, just on that particular point, I'm genuinely just interested in the type of qualifications, etc., you would normally expect from someone to be a crematorium manager. Doesn't sound like a very specialist role, and perhaps the difficulty in recruiting people was just simply you had a fairly small pool to recruit from. But I'm just, very open, genuine question, the type of characteristics and qualifications you would normally look for in a crematorium manager. Thanks.
Barbara, do you want to come in there, or do you want me to comment? It's up to you.
Obviously, the first time we went out to recruitment, we did specify that they need to be cremator trained. But as you say, it's a very specialised industry and very hard to get the right person with the management experience and the crematorium experience. So the second round, we put it's easy to learn to cremate. It's quite a quick process. You can do it within sort of 3 to 4 months. Whereas we felt the more important would be the management aspect for the gardeners, for the crematorium. So we've gone more in that direction, and the new person will start to cremate as soon as they start to learn to cremate as soon as they come on board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Could I move on to point 3.26, which is the action plan? That's Appendix B, which is page 15 of the agenda. I'm just going to comment on the updates that are in bold. I'll just give a moment for everybody to find page 15. Okay, item 2. We've actually submitted our spare T-Max from the Cameo process, and we will expect some income from that. I would expect later in the year, probably October or November. These are always dealt with in retrospect. We only recently gained some income. I think it was nearly £6,000 from the cremations from 2019. So we've now submitted the 2020 figures, and later this year we'll see what the outcome is from that. Item 3 is the new ashes lawn. This seems to be going on forever. I think I've been reporting on this now for 2 or 3 years, but we're on the cusp of actually getting the job done. Now, we carried out a recent procurement exercise, which unfortunately was very disappointing. We received 5 expressions of interest from companies, and then when it came to it, no one actually tendered, which left us in a dilemma. So I had a couple of extensive conversations with the council's design services, and they were able to go out to another procurement process, and we actually received 4 bids this time. So a really fickle market. We did get some comments from the people that weren't prepared to put in a bid the first time round, and they said that frankly it was just too diverse set of skills that were needed for that. If you consider we've got the war memorial to dismantle and then rebuild, and then we've got some extensive hard and soft landscaping works to do, plus the French drain. Sometimes that skill set isn't there within one particular company, albeit they can subcontract out some of these skills. However, that was then, and this is now. We've got 4 bids. I'm pleased to advise the board that only yesterday, Design Services contacted me. They've carried out the analysis and they are about to appoint a contractor. Now, Barbara and I have a meeting later today with Design Services just to go over this contract bid, and that will be in preparation of meeting the contractor on site as soon as possible, because the timeline is still that we start work very soon after Easter, and the work will be concluded by Father's Day, because I don't want the Garden of Remembrance, well, I want it looking at the best it can for such a poignant day. So we've got a window that we've got to work to. So we've got a couple of months between Easter and Father's Day to carry the work out. Moving on to page 16, item B, the purchase of new land to extend the Garden of Remembrance. Both the Treasurer and I have been in regular dialogue with the board solicitors, and we are finalising those arrangements, and the expectation is that the land will be purchased by the end of this month. Now, the Treasurer has got further detail and he will report to members as part of his report on that process. Moving on to page 17, which is item C, which is part and parcel of the land acquisition. We have a contractor, Cemetery Design Services. They've now provided us with written proposals for new memorial schemes and what we can do with the new piece of land and the existing spare land that we've got in the Garden of Remembrance. Now, Barbara and I have had a look at this proposal. We've got a meeting late, I think it's next week, and then we've also got another meeting scheduled with the company, and we're actually going to go through those proposals, and then those proposals will be will be included in one of my future reports to the board, just to let you know our intentions for the garden and the new piece of land. Bottom of page 17, energy efficiency, which of course is on everybody's mind at the moment. Yeah. We've got some capital money that we can carry out some further efficiencies in the crematorium, and at the moment we're looking at Wandsworth Design Services carrying out some additional insulation for the buildings, and we will any incandescent filament bulbs that are still in the crematorium, we're going to replace those with LED lighting. So I'm hoping by the end of the year we will have 100% LED lighting for the crematorium, which I think is fairly commendable. That's all I wanted to comment on the actual action plan, and I'm happy to take any questions at this stage from members.
Is there any questions, members?
Thank you.
Oh, Claire.
Thank you. Similar to this, page 9, point 3.28 is the repair and renewals and the routine works and capital works. I was just going to ask if there were any questions on that. It's all ongoing. There wasn't anything I needed to report on at this stage. We're obviously on the eve of a financial year, so it's all preparatory works at the moment with the capital programme, and the R&R is as is. If there is any unspent income there, that is probably a invoicing issue rather than the works not being carried out. But I'm happy to take any questions on appendices C and D if members have any.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, item 3.30 is the government's Competitions and Market Authorities report, which was issued just before Christmas, and I thought it was worthwhile actually bringing this to members' attention, because I don't know how much media attention this has had, but what I do know is that costs of funerals is certainly something that many people focus upon, because it's not until you're confronted with that dilemma then you actually see the actual costs involved in carrying out a funeral for someone. This report has been put together over the past 2 years, and it's really how people go about purchasing a funeral. And the CMA have looked at the competition between funeral directors and, to a lesser extent, crematoria, at the level of profits from these associated services. Now, I've provided a link for a copy of the full report. If members are inclined to read that, this is a report that's something like 500 pages in length. So it's quite a lengthy report. Now, I thought to myself when I saw this report, how do I present this to the board rather than having a swathe of report writing here? And I thought to myself it would be pertinent that I focus upon the comments that were made in the report about crematoria in general in the UK, and how we actually deal with things at North East Surrey Crematorium. So I thought it would be worthwhile making a comparison to bring an overall view of crematoria itself and what we actually do at North East Surrey. Now, the actual report centres around the charges and also the quality, the systems that are in place to ensure that the bereaved receive the quality that they deserve. Now, if I take you to item 3.35, you'll see that over 78% of people in the UK are actually cremated, and the CMA believe that most people choose the crematorium based on location to where they live, and cost is seldom a consideration. Although importantly, the quality of service is what people are looking for. Now, I've said this in the past, and I think you've got to consider this is an important point, because 75% of the cost of a funeral is usually with the funeral directors, not the crematorium. So I think that's an important point to be made, and predictably, that's why I believe the CMA report focuses upon the practices of funeral directors more than crematoria. So I think that's an important point to make. So although importance is placed on the quality of service at a crematorium, I actually wanted to comment on the practices at North East Surrey, and considering that we deliver an extremely sensitive service with a wide range of services, staff are often complimented on the care and patience and professionalism that they give to people. So therefore, merely choosing the local nearest crematorium, I would say that North East Surrey's reputation for quality of service and the range of memorials and how well maintained the facilities are is a key factor for the bereaved when they actually visit the funeral directors to find a crematorium of their choice. Now, in terms of cost, and this is an interesting one, when we review the annual charges and we compare the cremation fees, if I could draw members' attention to Appendix E, which is page 23 to 26 of your agenda pack, you'll see that in the Treasurer's report from December, the fees for local crematorium, and you'll see that North East Surrey is the least expensive of all of the local crematoriums in the area. Indeed, particularly the private crematoriums, which are Leatherhead and Stretton Crematorium, we're nearly half of the price of crematorium fee. And then if you move on to pages 24, 25 and 26, you'll see North East Surrey, in terms nationally, is one of the least expensive crematoriums in the entire UK. We're actually 302nd place out of 308 crematoria in this country. So again, I think it's testament to the board that are very conscious of how they deliver the fees and what we've done in the past, and the proof's in the pudding, really. You can see out of all those crematorium in the country, North East Surrey fare very, very well. When the Treasurer and I actually contributed to this CMA report, and we were asked to give details of costs and the like, and of course that's been entered in along with the other 300 odd crematoria. So I think we're quite confident in our fee structure. Now, if you move on to 3.38, the CMA are saying that because customers are insensitive to price, generally the crematoria industry has imposed higher prices than would have been expected in a well-functioning market, as they put it. So price rises in the UK crematoria section over 10 years have gone up considerably in excess of general inflation figures. They're also looking to introduce possible price regulation and a quality inspection regime. Now, when you actually look at what we do in item 3.39, our increase in charges in the past year haven't been over inflation. In fact, they've been in keeping with the RPI rate. And as I've already said, we remain one of the lowest cremation fees in the country. And we actually decided, or the board decided at the December meeting, to freeze the costs for a further year. So there were no increases for 2021. And as we well know, we have to keep a working balance to operate the crematorium, and then surplus balances are distributed. Now, in terms of an inspection regime, and this is item 3.40, North East Surrey are corporate members of the ICCM and the FBCA, and both organisations impose standards for the service of crematoria throughout the country. North East Surrey holds the gold status for ICCM services in this country, and I've been involved in this for many years, and I can say to you that the ICCM scrutinise our delivery of services. There's no stone unturned for the Charter for the Bereaved, and quite rightly, services are sort of held to account on that. But we fare very well, and we have the gold status for that. And indeed, the Federation of British Cremation Authorities regularly inspect the crematorium. In fact, they were due to the crematorium last December because of COVID. That's been delayed, and I suspect that will happen sometime this year. So really, all in all, and I'll bring you down to point 3.45. In conclusion, the CMA have not left us alone. They are certainly going to revisit this. And as I've said, that there could be price regulation for the industry in general, and there could be a possibility of looking at more stringent inspection regimes. But having a discussion with the surveyor and the treasurer, we are both satisfied that our current practices that are in place at North East Surrey, in terms of pricing policy and actually the quality of service we deliver, would be held up to any further scrutiny. So therefore, at this point, I will take any questions from members.
Councillor Henderson has a question.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's more of a statement, and can I just simply congratulate Clive and everyone involved. I think it's quite clear from the report and the comparison to the CMA report that North East Surrey Crematorium does actually deliver high quality services, evidenced by the low level of complaints and the very high take up, but also at a remarkably good cost. So I can only congratulate everyone involved for achieving that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that goes for all councillors. I know Nick's got his hand up. Councillor Draper.
Yeah. Oh yes, thanks. Yeah, I just really wanted to echo what Graham's just said there. It's absolutely incredible. I was going to ask a question. It's probably more to Barbara, well to Graham as well. But you know, given the intensity of what you've been doing just lately, do you feel that either obviously the quality hasn't slipped because we would have heard about it, you'd have had complaints, but what about the cost efficiency? Has that slipped in any way at all over the last couple of months? Because obviously it's not going to be the top of your list. The top of your list will be performing the service under very difficult conditions. Are we still as cost efficient as we were maybe 3 months ago?
Yeah, with the cremators we have, the more you use them, the more cost efficient they actually are, because obviously the more you put through them, the hotter they will remain, therefore we're using less gas. So if anything, we're probably more cost efficient at the moment than we would have been without it. So
thank you. I suspected that would be the case, but you know.
Thank you, board members. There are no other financial or legal implications from my report. So if there aren't any other questions, that is my report for the past quarter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clive. I'd just like to go to the recommendations, please. It's just to note the report as an overview of the surveyor's findings and the management of the crematorium for the past 3 months, January to March 2021. Agreed? Agreed? All agreed. Thank you, Clive, for your presentation and of course, all your ongoing work, Clive.
Thank you.
I'd like to go to item 6 now, which is the report of the Treasurer. And I'd like to hand over to Mark Davies report. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks very much. This is my standard report, really. It's unusual in that it's just covering a few sort of pattern repeat items rather than some of the larger reports I bring in June and again in December. So this report is to provide an update to the board on the performance against the management agreement annual budget that was approved just last December, and to provide an update to the board on the latest interim accounts for the 2021 financial year. And it also provides an estimate of the closing balance based on the latest forecast. The report also includes recommendations relating to the appointment of South London Legal Partnership in the matter of the acquisition of land from Wandsworth Borough Council, and the surveyor mentioned that in his report earlier. And it does seek approval for the sealing of any documents and recording within the register thereafter, and I would explain that a little bit further on. So if I can bring your attention initially to page 33, which is Appendix A to my report, which is the management statement for the period 1st of April to 31st of March. The total costs reimbursed by the board for the period ending 31st of January 2021 amount to 431,600 against an approved budget of 553,000. Effectively, that's 78% of the annual budget after 83% of the year. Within the interim accounts position, I'm still forecasting a full 553,000 with 2 months still to go, but it's possible. I mean, you were asking about efficiency earlier, Councillor Draper. Costs do look like they're going to come in under the approved budget level. So in summary, 3.4 of my report, in summary, cost of sales is marginally lower than could be expected with a uniform expenditure profile. I think the way things are managed, we buy maybe 3 months worth of supply in one go for certain memorial items, and obviously it makes it quite lumpy in terms of expenditure, and I think that's just recognising that. And there's a similar sort of underspend at the moment within the administration costs. So the revised budget reflects the continuing increased activity levels, which Clive has mentioned as a consequence of the pandemic. And I think, as we've already said within this report, I was estimating 2,600 cremations by the end of the year, and I think we're already saying we're slightly above that already. So it could well be that there'd be a little bit more expenditure, but also a little bit more associated income come the actual outturn position. 3.6, within the administrative costs, salaries are marginally underspent compared to the approved budget levels, 80% of the budget after 83% of the year, but offset by a slight overspend on agency staff. Staffing costs incurred include any additional resources that have been redeployed by Enable to provide additional support where we've got increased opening hours and the additional pressures at the crematorium where other parts of their business have actually been largely closed down due to government restrictions. 3.7, medical reference fees are showing an underspend against the year to date, but as that's paid quarterly, we expect that to be probably overspent by the end of the year because it's linked to activity levels. So my estimate at the moment is that it'll be overspent by about £2,000. 3.8, energy costs. So always a bugbear of mine that gas and electric costs seem to be up and down quite considerably, but part of that is probably as a result, as Barbara was saying, the cremators working more cost efficiently when they're used more frequently for longer periods throughout the day. So maybe it becomes quite hard to forecast the actual usage. But there's been a change in the arrangements. So the responsibility for the management of utility costs under the management agreement is now passed back to Wandsworth Borough Council's energy management unit rather than sitting with Enable. So hopefully going forward we get quicker, more responsive usage data and probably be able to be more reactive to if things start to look like they're going, costs are increasing. But just to reassure the board there that we're still going to benefit from prices secured under Wandsworth's own procurement arrangements with Laser. So I mean we're getting a far greater deal than we would have done if we were a standalone purchaser for energy in the market. Within the management agreement, all other costs are broadly in line with the budgets at this point in the year, and overall forecast is still at the point of producing this was to break even. So expenditure could continue to be monitored with year-end accruals raised as part of the final accounts process if necessary. And probably at that point, if anyone's got any questions on the management agreement, so Appendix A, page 33, I will happily take those now before I move on. Silence. So I'll move on to the interim accounts for the period ending 31st of March 2021. So Appendix B to my report shows essentially the financial statements. Line 3, shows progress on the revenue maintenance budget, which was covered by the surveyor's report elsewhere on this agenda. Line 14 shows the expenditure on the management agreement, as we just previously discussed. And if we just move down to line 18, that shows the total cash. Line 18 is the income from cremation fees. It shows the total cash received up to 22nd of February and only takes account of the activities on funeral directors' accounts up to the end of January. Income as a proportion of the revised estimates is at 89%. So comparing that to income levels at this point last year, we've currently got 1.451 million against 1.093 this time last year. So you can see from that the considerable additional income we're generating off the back of these the pandemic, which I'm not trying to paint it as a benefit or a positive, obviously, because it's the death rate speaks for itself, but obviously it does generate additional income for the board. So based on the current demand profile and bookings, we revised the estimate in December to 2,300 cremations. As we've already just said, 2,600 and above is looking more likely at this time. The forecast for 21-22 has been set on the basis of reducing to sort of normal levels of 1,950, but we'll have to see how that pans out throughout the early part of the next financial year, and then take account of that in the next budget setting in December 2021. So line 22, overall income is estimated to be 150,000 more than was approved in December. Line 28 is the capital schemes. So we revised the capital programme. We're still hoping, and the report will go on to bring some recommendations forward on the acquisition of land. We're hoping that completes in this financial year. So based on all the above, the projected surplus for the year is estimated to be 654,000 compared to the revised budget position of 498,000, and that would leave us with a closing balance of 889,000 compared to 732, which was what was estimated at the time of approving the budgets. So 3.23 on my report, so lines 34 and 35 show the split of the estimated working balance between the cremator replacement fund and the common fund, which is also known as the working balance. Current borough budget assumptions is that a sum equivalent to 15% of the distributed amount is put in aside for future cremator replacements, and we've discussed that at previous meetings. As the estimated working balance is above the level usually retained, it might be prudent to look at this at year end and put some additional resource aside, just so we build the replacement fund up quicker. But we take a view on that once we have the final year end position. And again, overall, the position will continue to be monitored and reported to the board at regular intervals. So again, if anyone's got any questions on Appendix B, I am happy to take those now.
No question?
No, fine. So if I move on to section 3.26 of my report, which is an update on the land acquisition. So in March 2019, the board approved the purchase of a parcel of land from Wandsworth Borough Council. This was approved as an exempt report as it contained confidentially sensitive information on the sums negotiated to be paid in respect to that acquisition. And if I could sort of remind board members, obviously this is an open meeting, and therefore we probably shouldn't be discussing the price at any point as part of this.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. As part of the recommendations within that report, the board approved to procure independent legal advice in relation to all matters relating to the acquisition of the site from Wandsworth Borough Council. Now, we've been having some quite extensive conversations with the legal representatives to try and push this over the line by the end of the financial year. And as part of the due diligence process, the South London Legal Partnership, who were appointed, have advised that a specific approval to act in relation to this matter with regards to the sealing of documents should be sought, and that this is also extended to cover any sealing of future documents as required in accordance with the board's standing orders. And the board members will recall that we review the standing orders each year, generally in September, and it was updated in September 2020 to include the board's appointed legal advisors in those able to attest to sealing of documents. So as a result of the conversation with SLLP, it is being recommended that we agree that SLLP be appointed as the board's legal advisors in respect to sealing any documents in relation to this. So they're acting as the advisors in relation to the acquisition of land, but they're also, with this recommendation, is seeking to appoint them as the legal advisors in respect to sealing of documents and any other matters going forward. And happy to take any questions on that before I mention the bit I put in the chat about a possible or a required additional recommendation.
Councillor Henderson has a question.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. And first of all, can I say I'm not suggesting there is anything untoward in this, but I did find it rather intriguing, especially as I have a legal background myself, that since the South London Legal Partnership, as indeed the report says, act on behalf of Wandsworth Borough Council, as to why they should be acting for us, as opposed to them continuing to act for Wandsworth and for us as a board to have obtained independent legal representation. And it just struck me as being strange. As I said, I'm not suggesting that there is anything greatly untoward about this at all. South London Legal Partnership are eminently competent and highly respected people, but I just found it very odd that for this was sort of one-off purpose, the Wandsworth legal advisors are actually advising us, and Wandsworth is actually obtaining legal advice elsewhere on the subject. Anyway, thank you.
It is slightly unusual, and it's probably worked to our benefit in that we've been able to tap in to Wandsworth's own legal advisors, and they had the ability under other agreements to go and seek other independent advice. Otherwise, we would have had to have gone out and had our own procurement competition to find our own independent advisor. So there's no conflict of interest here, as the report states. Yeah, the SLLP are acting on behalf of the board, and I think it is. Did I mention them? I was just seeing if I actually mentioned who it was, but yeah, certainly Wandsworth are using a firm well known to them to conclude the matter, and it is a firm that Wandsworth will use, it's from time to time on various property related matters anyway. It helps to some degree. Myself and Clive, obviously, in our day jobs, as it were, work for Wandsworth and Richmond councils, and we have access to the SLLP in a more direct way than we would do for any third party, as it were.
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you.
So if I can just move on a little bit then. So I don't know if everyone's seen in the chat, I've put an additional recommendation forward. Now, if I give a bit of background on this, and I think Cathy will be seeking for someone to propose and someone to second it. I don't think it's my place to propose an amendment at this point. Yeah. So just to follow on, so as part of the due diligence process that's been undertaken with South London Legal Partnership, South London Legal Partnership was queried whether the original recommendations taken in that March 2019 report that I referenced were sufficient to give authority to chief officers, i.e. either myself or Clive, to agree the final heads of terms for the acquisition of the land. Now, the original approval was to approve making a provisional offer of X and to progress arrangements for the potential purchase of land subject to ongoing due diligence, and approve an all-in budget of 300,000, which I can mention because it's included within the capital statement elsewhere, to conclude the acquisition of land and to cover the associated acquisition fee. So arguably, the authority was implied from the approval. The board have given myself and Clive approval to go and conclude the acquisition of land, but SLP have suggested that specific authority or approval to delegate authority should be approved prior to the conclusion. So as the final heads of terms are still being agreed, and to avoid any further delay in the acquisition, it is therefore recommended that the board delegate authority to the treasurer to agree the final heads of terms in conjunction with the surveyor and the board's legal advisors for the acquisition of land and any such other terms that are in the best financial interest of the board. SLP have confirmed from looking at our standing orders and scheme of delegations that the board does have the power to delegate such function, and without saying too much, the board can rest assured that the acquisition price still remains as agreed within the 2019 report. So if you're minded to look back at that exempt report, you'll see where we are. So my amendment to this report would be the inclusion of another recommendation, and if you look into the chat, the recommendation is that the North East Surrey Crematorium Board is recommended to delegate authority to the Treasurer to agree to the final heads of terms in conjunction with the Surveyor and the Board's legal advisors for the acquisition of land and any such other terms as are in the best financial interest of the Board. Cathy, I don't know if I can bring you in here and give us a steer on where I go with it now.
Yeah, I don't know if any board members would be happy to propose that recommendation. And anybody to second it?
Yeah, I'm happy to either propose or second.
Is anyone happy to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And then when we move to the recommendations, if we can include that one in your, when you come to agree or not agree the recommendations.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Cathy. Thank you. That's agreed.
So that's, I mean, that pretty much brings me to the end of my report. So yeah, if you want to go back to the recommendations now and take those now, then that will be, or if there's any further questions, obviously, before we get to that point.
Is there any further questions for Mark? Okay, we'll go to the recommendations. The recommendations are 2.1 to note the management agreement performance for the year ending the 31st of March 2021. And am I, Cathy, can I just say, am I reading this into 2.1?
No, to make it 2.4.
Right, okay, thank you. 2.2 to note the interim accounts and estimated closing balance for the year ending the 31st of March 2021, attached at Appendix B for information. And 2.3, agree the South London Legal Partnership be appointed as the board's legal advisors in respect of sealing any documents as required and recording those within the sealing register. And 2.4, the North East Surrey Crematorium Board is recommended to delegate authority to the Treasurer to agree to the final heads of terms in conjunction with the Surveyor and the Board's legal advisors for the acquisition of land and any such other terms as are in the best financial interest of the Board. Can we agree these recommendations?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. There is no urgent business today. And if I can just say thank you very much to everybody, to the members and to the staff, and especially Barbara and the staff who've been working tremendously hard through this time. And I think all the members here would absolutely agree to that.
Chair, can we give them a silent round of applause? I think because they've done an incredible job in very difficult circumstances.
Of course, Councillor Draper.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank Clive and Mark for all their hard work. And the date of the next meeting, before I close, is the 22nd of June, 2021 at 10 a.m. Thank you, members. Stay well and stay safe.